Hi, everybody. This is Gracie with Beautiful Life Self-Care, and I am calling in today from snowy Washington, D.C. It's been so cold here this week in the end of February, and we had a bit of a snowstorm earlier this week, and then just some frigid, icy weather, and now another really beautiful snowstorm outside right now. So it's been hanging out indoors, doing some work, and I decided to make a little fire, and there's like popping sounds in the fire, which has completely freaked out my dog Poncho, so he's like panting right next to me right now, so you might hear some of his sounds, and we can just send him good vibes, and it really makes me think about the way that our minds work, and I think this can really tie into this call, which is on Self-Care 101, and about how we can really tell ourselves something about our self-care that is not necessarily true, or maybe not even true at all. In just the same way that Poncho has heard these sounds of the wood crackling, which to you or me on a cold day, that wood crackling in the fire is a wonderful sound. And to him, it is imminent danger. And he believes it, and he's reacting as a result of it. And so what I want to do is I definitely want to talk about Self-Care 101 and how to get our bodies, our emotions, and then as a result too, our life and our work and our relationships really in a way that it's a much easier relationship. And if we're caught up in the stress response, then we start to really confuse the stress response with life itself. And so my intention and my goal for this call is to help us to not hear the cracks in the fire and think that there's something that they're not. And I think that's the most damaging thing with stress itself, is that we start to believe that it is us after a while. And so many days, if we just spend them running around and feeling like time is just on our backs all day long, there's never enough. And it's really a response that I think I learned really early on in my life, that there wasn't enough. And it's a scarcity mentality, and there's not enough money. There's not enough time for connection. There's not enough time to focus. And then the outcropping of that too is that what that after a while that does to our sense of self is that we start to believe that we're not enough. That no matter how hard we try, no matter what we do, no matter how much we give of ourselves, that we're not living up to some example that we should be. And it's not true. I'm going to say that right now, that none of that is true at all. But it is a process of learning how to move from that place of ignorance. And in yoga, what we call ignorance it's a word, it's avidya. And what avidya means is just it's ignorance of our true nature. And we learn in yoga that our true nature is limitless potential. Our true nature is one where we are at ease with the world around us. We're at ease with inner relationships. We're at ease in ourselves because we are love. That's our nature. And when we believe anything different than that, then we're going to suffer. And so that's maybe where a lot of us are at, and it's definitely where I spent a lot of my life at, in that avidya, or that suffering of believing something about myself that wasn't true. And what I'd like to do, first of all, is just to really debunk 5 of the things that are really not true, that maybe we've been believing on some level are true. And I think when I say these 5 things, then these 5 lies really we tell ourselves and break them down, I think you're going to feel a sense of relief that we're already you're going to feel a weight lifting off of you. And then after that, I'll tell you my 3 tips for really great self-care and how to have sustainable self-care within your busy life. Because I think that's another story we tell ourselves, is that, like, if I can just get out of my current life, then I can relax, then I can be peaceful, then I can feel like I have enough time and enough self-esteem and enough whatever it is, fill in the blanks for you. And I could give you a full call today just on like the techniques that work, because there are a lot of them out there that I found that do really work. But I think that this is maybe a more interesting conversation to talk about what gets in the way. And for those of you who follow my newsletter, and you can sign up for my newsletter at selfcarewithgracie.com. I do a weekly newsletter, but this week I did something a little different where I sent out 5 short videos on what gets in the way of our self-care. And so I had I really wanted people to watch them, so I made them I think the longest one was 3 minutes, but most of them are 2 minutes or less. So I just touched on them. So because we have this call format, I can go into them with a little bit more depth as well. So the 5 things, the 5 avidya, or the 5 lies that we tell ourselves that get in the way of our self-care are, number 1, it's really looking outside of ourselves for feelings of connection, or for feelings of accomplishment, or for feelings of happiness, whatever it is that you're looking for. And I talk to a lot of people, and I think it's just our culture where we're not living maybe with our families. If you look at most of the world, people have these family units where there's just a lot of built-in structure and connection, and just a sense of place. And we live in a culture where all of that is just really quickly within the past 100 years been switched up, or past 50 years really. And we start to tell ourselves, because we live in this materialistic society where we've been sold this idea that if we just have a little bit more, do a little bit more, have the right relationship, that we're going to find those things that we're looking for. And so we think when we don't feel fulfilled, that it means that we just have to work a little bit harder to find that connection. And that can be the promotion at work, or the raise at work, or the different job. I know a lot of us here in Washington, D.C., we do value ourselves a lot. We're here to work, a lot of us, a lot of drive and ambition in the city where I live. And so work becomes a big one that we think, I can just take care of myself once I kind of get to this place. And then another one is just the feelings of relationships. It's if you're single, we can really romanticize that feeling of wanting to be in a relationship. And if we're in a relationship that's maybe not feeling so good, be it a romantic relationship, a friendship, or someone in our family, and we think that, if that person could just value us and respect us and treat us the way we want to be treated, then we'll feel those feelings of connection. And because of these feelings of disconnection, we can feel lonely. And it's almost well, in this culture, we can't say that we're lonely, because that's sort of shameful to say that you're lonely. That we need to blame it on something else. But the myth around all of that is, I think what we're really lonely for is more of a relationship with ourselves. That if we, really liked and respected and honored ourselves in our thoughts and also in our actions, if we took care of ourselves, that we would have this sense of everyday fulfillment. And I think we all know people like this. For me, my history is I grew up in a family where had 2 really loving parents, but nobody really knew how to take care of themselves. And so the things that we started to use to take care of ourselves were, food and alcohol and TV. And really early on, my parents got divorced when I was 5 years old, and really early on I started to use food to take care of myself. And I started to gain weight. And being a kid early on in life, having gained weight is, not a great thing in this culture. And I became really interested or obsessed with the idea of losing weight. That if I could just, find a way to be this thin person or woman that I was striving for, then these feelings of loneliness would go away that I felt. And what I really found over these past 10 years of finding a yoga practice and really working that yoga practice and really understanding what self-care is and what self-care isn't, is that I was just lonely for, feelings of connection to myself. That early on, I wasn't taught to honor myself. And once I started to really practice self-care, I found that just naturally I started to lose weight. Naturally I started to not obsess over my body and stopped obsessing over, whether or not I had eaten dessert or the 10 pounds or whatever it is that can just drain so much mental energy that's there. So you can just ask yourself that, are you lonely in your life? And if you are, and all of us are sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. But are you really lonely for something outside of yourself? Or are you lonely for just self-honoring, for being able to treat yourself like a friend, for being able to be your own best caregiver? And I'm going to guess that if you really look inside for that relationship, that the outside stuff will start to work itself out after a while. Just the same way for me, when I understood that what I really needed was to not try to make everyone around me happy and to take care of myself, my body just shifted. So another reason that we can get in the way of our own self-care is that we tell ourselves this lie. And I call it the most destructive lie we tell ourselves, because it can drain our energy forever without ever giving us its promise. And the lie is that that I can take care of myself when this is done. And especially if you have a lot of people dependent on you, be it employees or children or spouse or dependent parents, that we feel like we have to put everyone else first before us. And I think I like this actually, because I think it doesn't come out of like I'm not going to take care of myself, but rather it comes out of a feeling of like I will take care of myself, but once everybody else is okay, once my whole to-do list is crossed off, I'll take care of myself. And I thought this other day, I was like starting to like wash some dishes and just like, I'll do some dishes. And I was like a little tired, a little stressed out. And I was like, okay, I'll just, I needed to rest, but I was like, I'll just wash these dishes. And then I like noticed that the counters were kind of dirty. And so I started to wipe the counters down. And then I was like, oh, the stove is kind of dirty. I'm going to start to wipe the stove down. And it was this thing where I was just like getting deeper and deeper into the like problem. And finally I had to stop myself. This is great about teaching self-care for a living, is that like I can't ever go too deeply into the opposite, even though I understand these instincts because they're in me. But I realized it's like, no, I don't need to completely clean my house right now. Like I don't need to answer every single email in my inbox. So what I can do is I can work and take care of the things that are most important first, and then I can take a break and I can take care of myself and I can drink some water and I can do a couple stretches and take my dog for a walk and do all the things that I know that I need to do to feel centered and grounded in myself. And so if you're not taking care of yourself, like ask yourself, like, is this something that you say to yourself? Like, are you putting yourself very last on your to-do list? Because like the thing about a to-do list is it never really gets done. And the thing about our self-care, too, is that we never fully get it all figured out either. I think we have this idea, too, that we just need to be like a little bit more perfect, and then we can kind of take care of ourselves like this person that we respect. But we're going to flip that on its head here and say that like if we start to treat ourselves like somebody that we respect and value, that taking care of ourselves, it becomes more easier, more fluid, and it's not this like strange thing on there. So check in with that for yourself the next time that you're, delaying your self-care and draining your energy more and more. Because the thing is at the end of all of that, you're not going to make like a great decision of like, oh, I'm going to make a kale salad right now and go for a walk afterwards. You're going to be like, get me the bottle of Pinot Grigio. Stat. And the episode of Mad Men or Broad City. That's what all my friends are watching right now. So it's like stopping at a point where you can really make good choices for yourself. And to do that, you have to stop believing that lie that there's going to be a point where every person's going to be happy and satisfied. And it's like the oxygen mask principle. So like if our child is sitting next to us and we try to put their oxygen mask on first and we pass out, like we're not going to be of any help to anyone else. So we begin by, again, we're going to look inside first, really flip the order of things, and then we'll take care of ourselves first. And I know this can start to sound really selfish, and it is, but I think the thing is that we need to understand that selfish isn't a bad thing. That selfish means that like nobody else has to take care of me, and it's that weight that we put on people because if we put everyone else before ourselves, and chances are if you do this, it's because your mother did it, or some other role model in your life, or society tells us to do this, that we will be loved and happy if we put everyone else first. But the problem with that is it comes out in kind of toxic ways. That it's like, if I'm going to compromise myself and my self-care so much, and then when you don't give me what I want, I'm going to get angry at you, or I'm going to get depressed and pull away, or whatever it is, the pattern that you do that you know affects your relationships. And it's what I do, definitely. It's like a very passive-aggressive thing that when I'm not taking care of myself and I'm giving all I can to make someone else happy, and they don't appreciate it enough, or they say something wrong and I snap at them, it's like it's not a good feeling. And nobody likes to feel that way. And what I'll teach you later on in the call is that, like, self-care is not that complicated, and, like, it doesn't take that long, but it does take some discipline around it, some self-awareness and some discipline to put it first. And then when we do that, then we become a treat to be around, and we think again of these people who take care of themselves, and we realize it's, like, not stressful to be around them, that we just get to relax because we know they're okay, that we don't have to be on edge. So think about that. Like, how are you defining selfish in your head? And can you make it a more positive thing, realizing that when we're really selfish in a peaceful way, in a self-honoring way, that we can be really helpful, really inspiring to the world around us. And for me, that the more that I've practiced active self-care, oh my gosh, like, it's shifted. It started this business. It's helped so many people, so many clients. It's made huge shifts from me putting myself first. And I still have those instincts where I feel like it's selfish sometimes, especially in the moment when I see somebody else there and I'm, like, so afraid I'm going to disappoint them. And I'm like a people pleaser, you know. I like everyone to just be happy. And it's like, no, but it's not really going to work. Life is not really going to work until we put ourselves first. So the third thing that gets in the way of our really good self-care is, excuse my French here, I'm just going to say it, it's that really shitty voice in our head that tells us that we're not worthy of self-care, right? Can we just, like, call up that voice in our head right now? Like, what does it say? It says, you know, that you know, everyone else, you know, that person, they're beautiful, they're successful, of course they're going to take care of themselves. Or, you know, if I hadn't have eaten that brownie yesterday, like, maybe I'd be worthy of self-care. Or, like, God, I have no discipline. I hear this all the time. I'm like, people will tell me, like, I'm just lazy. And I look at them and I'm like, you have a master's degree and you manage, like, 5 people and you work every single day. Like, you are not lazy. You're not a lazy person. You know, you just are believing that shitty voice in your head. And the great thing about it is that we all have it. So you're not alone in having it. And I think that is, like, number one, just having consciousness around that, like, every person who's human. And in yoga, we call it the ego. And the ego is the part of us that doesn't really want to be connected to the whole. It doesn't want to grow. It wants to stay stuck. It wants to be in a bad mood. It wants to be passive-aggressive. It wants to, like, find reasons to complain about things. It wants to compare ourselves to other people. And if we spend our whole life believing that, man, I like my grandmother, she passed away a couple of years ago, and really beautiful woman, had a, you know, really interesting life with my grandfather. They lived, you know, he was in the Navy, and they lived all around the world, and she had these great dinner parties. It was fashion and beautiful home, and very, like, socially charming, and she had really low self-esteem that she got really early on from her mother, my great-grandmother. And it's because she believed this shitty voice in her head was true, that she wasn't pretty enough, that she wasn't charming enough. And Brené Brown, she's this woman, she writes this book called The Gifts of Imperfection. Awesome book. And she has a great TED Talk, too, about vulnerability and imperfection. It's really changed my life to get to know her work. Actually, in my coaching courses that I do, I use her book as a manual, because until we start to understand the effects of this shitty voice, you know, of this extreme negativity that we think is just ours, you know, and so until we start to really share it out, that it's just going to control our lives, you know, and it's not true. And what Brené Brown really found in her research of people that she found this, like, subset of people that just seemed to, like, she called them wholehearted. But basically it's like people that just seem to, like, have a kinder relationship to themselves and to life. And she found that the only thing that these people had in common, it wasn't that they had perfect childhoods, it wasn't that they had not gotten divorced, it wasn't that they had more money, but it was that they just believed that they could be loved for their imperfections. That's deep, right? And we can say it, but like to really feel that for ourselves. You know, and for me in my whole life, it's like I've always been like, okay, I can just like be loved if I'm charming and if I'm in a good mood and if I'm productive and, you know, all these like positive qualities, but it's like I have to hide away like my loneliness and my neediness and my like wanting to eat 4 brownies and, you know, go online shop for a while. And what I've found is so the reverse, that it's like if I can just be really honest about it, like here on this call, just like telling people about it and sharing it out of a place of like wanting to bring consciousness to it and heal it, it transforms everything. Because I'm open in those moments. I'm not guarded. I'm not stuck in my ego. I'm interested in growth and believing that there's some part of me that's bigger and stronger and worthy of care. And so the only problem with the shitty voice in your head is when you believe it. And what I find too is that I don't feel it as much anymore. I hear it. It's allowed to talk, but I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to believe it. But I find when I don't try to make it go away, and when I don't believe it, it goes in the back seat. Like the volume gets turned down on it, and I can laugh about it. Journaling really helps me too if I'm just in a really bad mood or mental state. Like I'll just take out a journal and just write down what that shitty voice is saying to me, and just by even putting the words out there and seeing them, it makes me feel better. It's like not keeping it alone. Because I think it's again this feeling of connection, that when we believe that we are our stress and our negativity, then we feel like we have to hide ourselves. And when we can release that, then we feel like we can be in connection. And then it's like I'm talking about all this because the self-care itself is easy once we get this stuff worked out. And I put these videos out this week, and just one a day, and just the response has been so inspiring, actually, of just how many people feel this way. I don't know whether to be like compassionate or inspired or what, but it makes me feel better that I'm not alone in it. And it makes me feel inspired that it's like if we can just figure this out for ourselves in terms of like what is truth and what is a video, what is ignorance of truth, and then remember that, then self-care, the path is there, you know. So the next reasons, we've been through 3 of the reasons already, and the next reason is that gets in the way of our self-care is, again, excuse my French, these are 2 concepts that need strong words. So this is the fuck it effect. And what that is that, you know, I think we've all tried to make change before, and I love that about us. I love that about human beings, that, like, we never are without trying to make change. Like, I think we always, like, especially in our culture, like New Year's resolution and the diet, and I'm going to go on this cleanse. It's like we believe we can change. And I lived in Peru. I did the Peace Corps there and lived in like a village in the mountains, and where, you know, generations of families lived together. It was a really beautiful lifestyle in so many ways, but like people just didn't really believe they could do much more than they were doing. Like they'd never seen examples of people really to inspire them. And I think that's, you know, a big part of Peace Corps is like being like, hey, look at this whole different way of life, and it's, you know, you can say what you want about that, but it was interesting to kind of like see that the difference. Because in our culture, it's like all the time we like look at the news of like, all right, how are we going to become this person? And I love that. But the thing is that that also kind of reeks of perfectionism. And what perfectionism is this idea that we can like get it all done and get it all right and mold ourselves into this perfect person. Which doesn't mean that we can't change. In fact, we totally can change. I see it all the time. You know, I've changed my life so much through learning more about self-care. And I know if you follow these principles, you will too. Like, absolute. But the thing is like when we try to go too far, too fast, and this is the New Year's resolution problem. It's like we wake up on January 1st and we're like going to the gym every single day. Gonna go vegan this year, gluten-free, fill in the blank, whatever it is. And you're probably going to be good at it for like a few days, you know, and you're like, I'm going to do this. But the problem is that you're using something called willpower to make this change. And what willpower is like, it's like if we want the cookie, I think maybe we all have this experience, like we want something and there's this part of our brain that's like, I want it. And then there's this part of our brain that's like, no, you're not really supposed to eat a whole lot of cookies. And they'll fight each other out. And the willpower is that part of us being like, no cookies. And the little inner 5-year-old in each of us is like, cookies, cookies, cookies. And the willpower, we can use it for little spurts, but if we try to use it all of the time, especially when we're trying to become this like person who goes to the gym every day, whatever it is that we exhaust our willpower. And we all feel that. It's like 2 hours of sitting there debating over whether or not to eat the cookie, and then we go eat like 4 cookies. Whereas if like in the moment we felt like we wanted to eat the cookie, we had like half a cookie and took a walk and drank a glass of water and, we took care of ourselves in that moment, we probably wouldn't have eaten the 4 cookies. And this is like the feast or famine, like the binging effect too. It's like we deny ourselves for so long, and we're denying ourselves too these feelings of connection. We're denying ourselves compassion and kindness and these things that we need to thrive. Like if you don't treat a baby with love, you don't hug a baby, if you're like, that baby doesn't thrive. And like, why do we feel like we're different than that? And so it's what happens is like we mess up, we make a mistake, we like stop going to the gym, we eat a block of cheese, and which isn't so bad because that's part of it. It's like the learning process. Like I'm really not into the whole right or wrong things, but it's more the problem is with that is that we start to believe that we're a person who can't change. And that's, again, it's like the person being like, well, I'm just lazy. It's like, are you? Or have you tried the wrong techniques? Have you tried to go too far too fast that exhausted your willpower and rebelled? And can you embrace a kinder, gentler way of making change? And it's what I teach. It's what I teach in my coaching is how can you make it so easy that you can't fail? That's powerful, right? How do you make it so easy that you can't fail? Like, how do you go to the gym like once a week? Like, if you're not going to the gym at all, if you go to the gym once a week, that's great. Like, I'm really into like teaching like under 5 minutes of meditation these days. A lot of my clients think they want to start meditating. They know it's something they need to do to feel more inner peace. And so, like, how do you just wake up in the morning and sit for like 2 minutes? Like everyone has 2 minutes in the morning. But it's like when we tell ourselves a story, it's like, if I don't sit for 20 minutes, it's not a real meditation. I need like the right cushion and again, that's that part of ourselves, that ego that doesn't want to change. And I think a story that we tell ourselves a lot when we're dealing with the fuck it effect is like, maybe not like I can't ever change, but like now is not the right time. And I hear it from people too. It's like they really want to change something. We have this conversation where I'm like, are you ready to change? Is this important to you? And they're like, it is. And then I tell them about a program I'm doing, and they're like, next year. And life will be easier next year. And I'm like, will it be easier next year? 'Cause I don't know. Especially if you're not practicing self-care, you're never going to feel like you have enough time. You're never going to feel like you're rested enough or whatever. It's perfectionism again, that we don't make change in the present moment. And then we feel bad about ourselves. And we develop this like self-esteem. So can we see how this like kind of all fits together here, that we're just like keep looking outward when we need to be looking inward. We keep delaying when we need to be acting. And we go too big when we need to go pretty small. And, I use this methodology all the time for myself because, again, we learned that these habits that, like, we never get them done. Like, we can always do better with our self-care. And it's a beautiful process because it means we're evolving. And for me, something I'm trying to do is I do yoga when I wake up in the morning, but I'm trying to do some yoga before I go to bed every night. And I really love forward folds. They're like, especially this time of year where it's just kind of weather's a little crazy and changing and cold takes a lot out of me. I feel like just to get my energy really centered, I need to do a forward fold. So I do like one, and I hold it for a couple of minutes. I do like a passive one over like a bolster, and I like to put a little essential oil and some sesame oil and just rub it on my feet. I give myself a little foot massage, which is really nice for circulation and calming. And I do the forward fold, and I have a hot water bottle, and I'll put that on my lower back. And it's like really just a couple of minutes. But it's like if I told myself I had to do like a half an hour of yoga, like that wouldn't work, and I would give up. So go small, go realistic, and just be consistent with it, because you make it easy enough that you can do it. And if you mess up, it means you made it too hard, and just go smaller and simpler. And a big thing of this is people, I talk to a lot of people about their morning routine, because it's something I've really worked on. I used to have these mornings where I would just like, I wouldn't go to bed on time, stay up watching Netflix, had a great run with Mad Men and Friday Night Lights, and, every series there, and eat a later dinner and drink a beer, a couple of glasses of wine, and I was living with a partner at the time, and he would get up like super early in the morning and go walk the dog and get his stuff done, and I would he'd bring me a cup of coffee in bed at like 8, and I kind of be like groggy and get up, and then I would get jacked on the coffee, and then I would feel overwhelmed immediately about my to-do list and mad at myself for not doing yoga and all of this. And what I found in order to start shifting this for myself is that I needed to start meditating. And I felt that. I don't know what it was. It just something woke up in me where it was like, there can be a different relationship with life here. So I started to meditate when my partner took the dog out for a walk. He would go, and I would get up, and I had this little place I would sit, and I would just go sit there. And then when he came back in, it was less than 10 minutes. Usually I would, dog would come greet me, and I'd be done. And then I started to be like, well, I want to drink water before I drink coffee, And then I was like, well, I want to get up earlier, so I have to go to bed earlier. So I'm going to bed earlier. I have to eat my dinner earlier. And it was just one little change after another, and everything shifted for me at that point. But I started to understand, this is real energy, And I was teaching yoga for like 5 years, telling other people to take care of themselves, and I didn't know what to do. I was just in my habits and my patterns. So you can start to shift that for yourself. Just go small. Maybe it's 5 minutes of meditation. Maybe it means plugging your cell phone in a different location. This is really big for a lot of people. It's like if our phone is right by our bed, if we're using that for our alarm clock, then we're, going to look at it first thing in the morning. We're going to get stuck in bed. We're not going to meditate. So it's like, can you plug your phone in upstairs or downstairs, and can you use another alarm clock, and then just wait until after you do, 5 minutes meditation before you look at your phone. And I guarantee you it'll shift things. If you start to change up your habits, you'll change. And we start to see that our identity is really tied in with our habits, that we think we are this person that's fixed, and we're not. And this is another piece of ignorance, that we think that we know who we are. But again, in the yogic philosophy is that we're potential. And it's like we think, if we happened upon the world a couple billion years ago, we say this is the world. And then look at it now, look at evolution. And that same process is happening within us. It's like we're changing as humanity, we're evolving as people, our bodies are changing as we move from one stage of life to the other. As we change our diet and eat from our ecosystem, we're going to have different responses. And that if we, and they go hand in hand, that if we want to change ourselves, we really have to look at who do we want to become, and we have to think about what are the habits that person has. And I knew I wanted to be someone who meditated every day, because I saw those people, and I saw that they had a groundedness, and they had a connection to themselves. They put themselves first, and so I did it small, imperfectly. I'm such an imperfect meditator. Oh my gosh, mind wanders all over the place, but I do it. I do it every day, and I show up, and everything is shifted as a result. So I hope when you hear this, you don't feel intimidated. I hope you feel whatever it is. It might be exercising for you. It might be thinking, it might be just those negative thought patterns you get in, that shitty voice in your head, and it might mean when that voice starts, I'm going to journal. I'm going to, or that person that you get in those long gossipy conversations with, when that conversation comes up, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to break these patterns, and I'm going to see who I can be on the other side of that. Because I don't think we'd be discontent in our lives if there wasn't something on the other side, if there wasn't a vision of ourselves. And maybe we can just do that now, because we have the time on this call, is to just imagine, who do you want to be? Can you get this glimpse of yourself in a few years? If you were to start taking care of yourself, who would that person be? How would you use your time? What would you say no to? What habits would you have? And then what can you do now? to start to move in that direction. Because it's now or never. I've been doing this investing course, and it's so great. It's a very simple course, just like a packet that I've been reading, and it's basically like, when was the best time to invest? It's 20 years ago. Second best time, right this moment. And it's true, and I did it. I opened up a little investment account, and it's like I can start now. And you can start now too. So, okay, so we're almost at our fifth reason right now. And the fifth thing that gets in the way is other people and FOMO, our own fear of missing out. And I just brushed on it, actually. It's like, if we're used to relating to people as a certain person and we want to change, it can be scary because people might not change with us. And it's like, if your social life, if your, familial life is all, to say you want to eat like a early or later dinner, but your family doesn't get home from school and sports and work until like 8:30, and then to think about like not doing that. You can't get your whole family to like eat dinner at 6, but you want to eat dinner at 6, and then to like think about not eating with your family. That's fear of missing out. Like I don't want to miss out on those moments and sharing food together. And what I want us to understand is that it's like that's primal. That like we're tribal beings. We're meant to like eat together and live together and sleep together, and that like to make a change. In some ways, it brings up the fear of like banishment. That if we don't go along with the tribe, that we get kicked out and we don't have food and we don't have resources. So understand that, and maybe it's your group of friends. They'd like to go to happy hour. DC is like such a happy hour town. It's like when I was working in office, like happy hour, every night, just people love to go have a couple drinks because we work too hard. During the day, we stress ourselves out and we want to go have a few drinks and bitch about things. So let's say your group of friends is like to drink a few glasses of wine and bitch about life and what's not going right. And you know that that's not who you are, really. That's not the identity that you want to work towards. So what do you do? And it's not easy. I'm going to say that. I have such FOMO. And it was like crippling. And what I would do when I had this like FOMO was like I would just overschedule myself. And it's all these reasons tied together because it was like I was feeling lonely, and I thought if I could just schedule every single night something, then I wouldn't have to sit with these feelings of like loneliness. I wouldn't have to sit with that shitty voice in my head. But what happened is it didn't fix it. It just got worse, where I felt like I was not really present for the people and the relationships that I had. That I wasn't being the inspiring person I wanted to be. And when I understood that, when I understood what fear of missing out really was, and that it's a lie, it's not true, then I was like, I can shift, And when I understood that what I really wanted was a deeper connection of self-honoring of myself, then it was like, well, I can stop taking so much on. Because I was making people upset around me. I was late to things, I was saying I would do something and then be exhausted and cancel last minute, and it made me feel stressed out and like not a good friend. So I think if you're feeling the FOMO, you probably know, and I know a lot of people who feel FOMO. So it's like, again, just call it by its name. Like, this is just FOMO, not real. And then, see if you can start to take a little bit more leadership for how you spend your time with people. And so that means, like, for me, I don't like to eat late, and a lot of people like to go have dinner. And so when people ask me to dinner, I say, hey, could we have brunch instead this weekend? I love brunch. Brunch is a great time of day to eat. We have a ton of bile in our system around between 10 and 1 o'clock. Really easy to break down food and digest it. And I feel so much better when I have a big meal at that time. And I'm tired at night these days. Like, I don't feel like I'm my best self when I go out, especially after I've had a couple of drinks. I'm like barely coherent. And it's funny how it changes, because having a couple of drinks, a few years ago for me was no big deal. And now it's like, even one drink can be a lot for me. I start to really feel it in a whole different way as I get more sensitive. So it's, this is the hard part. It's practicing courage. It's like, you go and let's have brunch this weekend, or I'll go, but I'm going to have one drink. And you can tell people this ahead of time. Like, I'm going to go, but I want to go to the gym tonight, or I want to get to bed early, so I'm going to have one drink and I'm going to go to bed. And hold yourself to it. And if you tell your friends you want to do that, they'll help you, And if they don't, then then maybe that's just time to evaluate. You know, if your friends don't want you to take care of yourself and they're really actively, and I have a couple friends like this too, they don't want you to go home after one drink. They want you to hang out with them. And I have to be a little bit more careful about how I spend my time around them. And I still love them and respect them. But it's you know, I have to put myself first. Oxygen mask principle. So, yeah, take some leadership. See how it goes. And like, I think that the people that are really the people you want to spend time with are going to be inspired by this. And it's like people just do what they, you know, have always done. And it's like if you take an initiative and say, let's go for a hike this weekend, and you organize that with your group of friends or your family, or you ask different kinds of questions. And I think we do this. We get in these, like, conversation ruts of, like, oh, what did you do today? You know, and, like, we're not feeling inspired or energetic, and we're not eliciting that. But it's like, can we just show up? If we're not eating dinner early if we're not eating dinner if our family eats later, and we want to eat earlier, and you eat your dinner at 6, you know, later dinner, so easy to digest, and your family comes home at 8, and you can sit with them and serve them dinner if you want to, and then be curious. Be like, how are you feeling today? Like, what's exciting you? What did you learn? And and just that curious attitude about life, I find it to be, like, unbelievably attractive, like, so beautiful to be able to sit with people and just be curious about, like, who are you, especially the people you think you know. Because I had a friend, and she was in a really long relationship, and they broke up, and she said the problem was that they stopped getting to know each other. The problem was that they assumed that they knew each other's dreams and hopes and dislikes, and they stopped asking each other those questions. And she's actually in a new relationship now, and it's cool because she's really making this active effort to ask more questions and to get in there. And don't just ask somebody, like, what they want once. Like, ask them a few times. Get curious. Get curious what makes the person around you tick and what their passions are. And it's wonderful. So those are the reasons. You know, those are the things that get in the way. And it's all about looking inside. And this is why it's so beautiful to find yoga. So it's like we have this different way, because obviously the outer way is not working. Like what our culture tells us, that we just need to buy more, we need to do more, put other people first, you know, be perfect. That doesn't work, because it's leaving us exhausted. And we're not going to be able to do what we're here to do. We're not going to be able to be that person that we need to be, who's present, who's enjoying their life, if we keep looking outside of ourselves. So I hope that helps. It helps me to say it out loud, and it's helped me so much to practice it. And I'm not perfect, but that's beautiful. I'm not perfect. I love that. I love being able to say that. I make mistakes. You know, I eat too much dessert some nights, and I don't feel good, and I feel that. But the change of that is that I don't beat myself up over it anymore, and I learn from it, and I, you know, keep going back to what does serve me. So the 3 secrets of self-care that I found to be extremely effective are, it's a formula actually that I came up with. It's I have it on my website. It's self-care, number 1, plus self-awareness, number 2, equals self-love or self-esteem. And I'm going to break those down just a little bit more and kind of some yoga speak. So self-care, and what I find to be self-care is not sexy. It's about having a routine that works in my life. Because the thing is that when we are stressed out, when we're tired, when we're exhausted, and we don't have a routine, we're not in a good place to make decisions about how to spend our time or our money, or you know, if we should order a drink or not. We're just going to go with what is going to numb us, because we're not connected to ourselves. I think that's a lot of what we do with the Netflix and the brownies and, you know, whatever fill in the blank for you, is that we numb ourselves, and we don't pay attention to these, like, part of ourselves that really needs just, like, some compassion and some rest and some good food or whatever it is. And so the self-care is about making a daily routine for yourself that really works. And yoga and Ayurveda, which is something I've studied a lot, which has really helped me, it's the sister science to yoga about how to really live our life. The word that they use is dinacharya. And so and dinacharya means daily rhythm. So we have to create a daily rhythm for ourselves that gives us energy. And if we look at the world around us, like, the world around us has a daily rhythm. Sun rises, it gets high in the sky. It goes down. The world sleeps. We have seasonal rhythms. You know, we're in the dead of winter right now. It's so cold and snowy. And then in the summer, it's going to be so warm and humid here and abundant and produce. And then it's all going to shut down again. And we live in this world where we're like, strawberries are imported, you know, all year round. I could go buy strawberries right now that are grown in Chile. And we live in this world, too, where we have lights and screens, and we don't have to go to bed at night. We can stay up. And I hear this from people all the time, like, I'm just a night owl. And I'm like, no, you just have all these apparatus that helps you to stay wired late at night. And you're tired, you know. There's a great quote in Ayurveda. It's by this guy, Dr. Vasant Lad, who's brought a lot of this, you know, Indian esoteric knowledge that is so practical. And he says that we should never confuse the habitual with the natural. That the 5 elements that are outside of us, the 5 elements like water, fire, air, ether, earth, that create the world around us, like they're in us too. Like we're animals. We're not separate from things. And we're affected by the daily cycles. We're affected by the seasons. We're affected by the times of our life. We live in a culture where we're told to be young all the time. We're not honoring that, like, the body, it starts one way, it changes, and then it ends another way. And that if we can get ourselves on this pattern of life that's really natural, that's really relaxed, you know, that really just instead of like going against this flow of energy, that we're going with it. We're going with flow. And it has just changed my life. I'm going to say that like, because I told you, I was like going to bed late, using a lot, I was numbing a lot, I was waking up late, I was always feeling like I was behind, I was feeling I had to make everyone else happy. And I'm just in this place now where it's like I wake up before the sun rises. And I make an effort. Waking up's no problem when you go to bed early is what I find. I have to make the effort on the going to bed. So I go to bed by 10 o'clock. I put the essential oils, I like lavender oil, put that on my feet. I do my forward fold. I read in my bed. I pet my dog, and I go to sleep, and I get good sleep. And I wake up in the morning, and I know what I'm supposed to do. I do my detoxification practices. I drink warm water. I scrape my tongue. I go to the bathroom. I do yoga. I meditate, not like tons and tons of time. Like I can do my whole routine in 30 minutes, sometimes even shorter when I'm traveling or somebody's staying. It's like, but I know what I need to do. I have a rhythm. I can relax into that rhythm. And then the thing is like I get my needs met, especially in the morning routines. Like I get my needs met early in the day. And then once my needs are met, I can go out in the world and I can be of service, that I can go and I have the energy and the focus that I can write a blog post and like it can help people. I can go teach a yoga class that's like a transformative space for people who are stressed out in their days that helps them to shift. And I can do it in such so much easier. Or it just felt like I was fighting against so much. I was fighting against myself all the time. And so self-care is the first thing, and it can be different for you. Like maybe, I've a person I know, and she needs to get up and do like hard exercise in the morning. She has a lot of we learn in Ayurveda that you have like elements in your system. I have a lot of the like fire and air and kind of these like ethereal elements, so I need to ground myself. So like some slow yoga, some salutations, deep breath, meditation, perfect for me. And she has like a ton of the earth element. She is just heavy, and it's hard for her to get up. It's hard for her to get moving. So she does like CrossFit in the mornings. And when she does that, like her whole life goes well. So it's different. And I can't tell you what that thing is for you. And the only thing that's really going to help you is to start to practice it and start to pay attention to like what gives me energy, like what makes me feel good. And that's the only metric, like when I work with clients, it's the only metric that I like to use is, does this make you feel better or worse? And when you wake up in the morning, do you feel achy? Do you feel depressed? Or do you feel ready and energized and inspired, that you can ride this wave of the day and love your life, love yourself. And I don't think that's like air, like pie in the sky self-talk. I think it's possible because I'm experiencing it, and I wasn't before. And the distance was not that far, but it meant looking at the things that get in the way and really unlearning the untruths, not confusing stress with my true nature, and really seeing that there's more, feeling into that identity. I wanted to be a person who was of service, and I wanted to be a person who, took good care of herself. And And even just seeing my physical space transform. I used to just have so much clutter everywhere, and now it's like as I declutter my schedule, as I take care of my body, and as I shed the pounds, like I've lost like 20 pounds in this past year. Not because I was really trying to, just because my body changed when I wasn't eating out of stress, when I wasn't eating late at night, when I built exercise in as a part of my day that's not negotiable. Then my body changed and my surroundings changed. I take bags of stuff to Goodwill all the time. I keep things around that I love that are useful, and I let go of the rest. I'm not clinging like I used to. I let go of relationships. It's a letting go. It's hard to let go. It's scary, and that's okay. I feel scared sometimes. I feel lonely sometimes, but I know the truth of that. So, and I practice self-care in those moments. Like if I feel that way, I would felt that way a little bit. I woke up this morning and felt like just a little lonely. I'm living by myself now, and just feeling a little lost. And I was like, no, what do I need to do? So I got up and I meditated and made a cup of tea, and I go to an early morning yoga class on Saturday, and washed the floors when I got home, and ate a big brunch, and felt great, and I realized no, I just need to just connect I need to take care of myself. So self-care, number one. Number two is self-awareness, and it's what I've been talking about. It's watching yourself and watching that reaction you have, like the perfectionism, the right or wrong, treating your life like an experiment. And there's a word in another yoga word. It's ojas, and what ojas is it's like it's the field of being. But it's like what makes us feel at home in the world. And when we meditate, when we take time to really let our nervous system relax, we have this feeling of ojas. I don't know if anyone's gone to a restorative yoga class before, but ojas is the feeling when you totally have that deep nervous system relaxation, and you're taking those involuntary sighs, and you walk out and you kind of feel like anything that was a problem, I can't even think of that right now. You're in a state of ojas, and you're building that in your system. But the thing about ojas is that when we're not taking care of ourselves, we burn it. That we use that ojas when we go in, we don't have a reserve of energy. We get burned out. And that's what being burned out is. And in Ayurveda, they say that when your drive and your needing to fix everything and change everything is so high, the energy moves so fast. And if you're not doing something to ground and balance yourself in that you actually burn that feeling of well-being and rest. And I see it all the time here in BC. It's people push themselves so hard here, and we don't have any awareness in our culture about what it is to be a really successful professional while taking care of yourselves. So we feel so I work with a lot of women, a lot of very professional women, and it's they can't let down for a minute. And I understand why. It's we're told we have to be better, we have to push ourselves, but it's at what cost? And once you burn that out, you're adrenal fatigue is a real thing. And once you burn that out for yourself, it's not the easiest thing to get back. It takes a while. And so it's if you are feeling that way, it's okay. And what ojas is another word for it, just so we can ground it a little bit more in our culture, is the immune system. And so it's if you're getting sick all the time, chances are your ojas is probably compromised in some way. And what you need to get it back is sleep and downtime and positive thinking and good grounding food and time to digest. And what we need in order to give that to ourselves is self-awareness. And we need to match our self-care. So the thing is some of us are I'm taking care of myself and going to the gym after work and working out hard for an hour and staying up late and get all my work done and answering all these emails. And it's we can start to confuse this extreme self-care with when it's not really feeling good in our body. And it's something I found for myself in yoga classes these days. I love going to yoga. Anytime I get to go be a student in a yoga class, I love it. But some yoga classes, it's not right. Some teachers push really hard, and it can feel good in the moment. But if I walk out of that class and I'm not feeling balanced, because I feel kind of agitated or drained, I know that it's not the right yoga class for me, because I know that I want to walk out of the yoga class feeling light and grounded, And so that's what we start to see. It's is our self-care, We can tell it's really self-care when we feel good the next day. If you wake up, you feel exhausted because you're working out, doing boot camp every single night, and you're like hamstrings or you can bounce quarters on them. Like maybe you're pushing yourself too hard, and maybe like the long-term effects of that, they can be pretty harsh. So I'm just going to say it, that like notice your OJAS levels, notice your immune system, and have self-awareness around that, and notice when you're hurting yourself, and then practice the self-care that actually works. And so that's the formula. So self-care plus self-awareness. So it's what works, and then, self-awareness to actually do it and make sure that it's really working for us, and evolving those practices when we need to. It's like maybe 5 minutes of meditation is going to feel great, and then next year you're going to want to do 10 minutes of meditation, and that's the self-awareness. It's going to help you to figure that out for yourself, and that like we understand we're just evolving. And then the last piece of it is self-love. It comes into it. It's like, I think if we just practice those two things, and like, if we treat ourselves like a person that we want to be, and we have enough awareness around us to keep that up, then we love ourselves. And then we love ourselves, other people love us, and we love other people, and it just works. But the thing about it all, as I say this, I'm like, you need accountability sometimes for it. And I work with groups of women, coaching them together. And I find that's really what helps the self-awareness and the self-love, is that we see ourselves and other people. We feel these feelings of connection. We know that we're not alone in our struggles. And that's hopefully listening to this call today has made you feel that way, that you're not alone in your struggles. You're not alone in wanting to take better care of yourself, but needing some help sometimes with it. And so it's powerful. It's really amazing. It's really like the deeper feelings I have about this work are there's this Dalai Lama quote that he said once, that if the world is really going to be saved, it's going to be saved by Western women. And just seeing my friends and seeing the city, I'm like, I totally believe them. Like, I am just surrounded by extremely intelligent, driven, good-hearted women. And this is not saying anything bad about, women from other cultures or men in our culture, but it's that I think that we have something really special with the amount of education that we've been given, with the amount of opportunities. I know it's not perfect, but in terms of like any other group of women ever in the world, like we have some opportunities here. And it's like, if we're running ourselves into the ground and not taking care of ourselves, like, what's that potential, It's like, if we can really get invested in, like, what's being lost, like, what the cost of this is, that's a really big cost, for the world. So it's like, when I do this work, I'm like, I want your issues to become non-issues. Like, I want your 10 pounds to go away so you don't have to think about it anymore, and you can focus on, like, what you're here to do and helping and being the kindest, most compassionate person you can be. I want your sleep to be okay so you have the energy to wake up and do the work you're supposed to do. And I want you to be supported. And that's why, like, we're doing group coaching. It's like, I want you to be part of a really dynamic community of women. Because if we don't have accountability from people whose habits that we admire, it's going to be harder. And so it's like, what I do is I just create a container, in the inspiration and the leadership. And then these groups of women, I work with 20 at a time, and we do a 10-week process where we work, again, really small, one habit a week for 10 weeks. It's the effort is small, the changes are huge. And that's just in the 10 weeks. People have lost, 10 pounds with one person I've been working with. She's lost 10 pounds from eating earlier or later dinners. It's shifted her whole metabolism. People have, come in with pretty bad anxiety, and then been able to shift to a place of just feeling really connected to their life and really grounded and calm. And so again, it's like, it's not the hardest stuff in the world, but it's like just creating a community where we can really learn. Again, I didn't learn this stuff early on, so it's like this knowledge that I share is hard won, and it's valuable because of that, and I want to share it. So sharing that knowledge out, and to be inspired by each other, and then to feel the momentum of 20 women working together to make a change. It's like, it's so much stronger than what could be, just on our own. And to 20 women who are having the conversation that we really want to have, the conversation that makes us feel light and grounded and inspired about what's possible. That's priceless. So I love being able to do this work. I love being able to do this call. I want to stay in touch. So when you listen to this, like, go to my website. It's selfcarewithgracie.com. and sign up for my mailing list. And I like, talking to people. It's a big part of this work I like to do is connection. So I have on my website, you can sign up for a 30-minute free talk with me. And in that 30 minutes, what we do is basically you talk and I listen. And I ask you questions and I point things out and I help you see things in different ways. It's transformative. And it's in that 30 minutes that we really make you a game plan of, like, how do you move forward? Like, where are you stuck? And just saying it out loud, it's going to make you feel a lot better. And it's free, which is kind of fun. It's my gift to you for that. So I hopefully if you're feeling this and you're feeling like, wow, I'm ready to make a change. And I only really want to talk to people who are ready to make a change or just really invested in this process, and then sign up for that. And I send out weekly emails Wednesday afternoons, and they're fun. Moments of just, honesty and self-care and action. And then you can also like my Facebook page. It's Beautiful Life Self-Care. And I post things every day on there, just articles, how to stay balanced, how to stay focused, great quotes, all about inspiration. So thank you so much for your attention, for listening, and for caring about your own self-care, because it's gonna shift your life. It's gonna inspire the people around you, and I believe it's really gonna change the world. I have a big, uncompromising vision around that. So that we are so powerful. So to the truth that is within each of us and all of us, namaste. Thank you so much.